Hi, this is Rose with Carolina Hoofbeats TV, and I came down towards Tarboro, between Rocky Mount and Tarboro today, to A&H Equine Sales and Training, where she has been gracious enough to help Bailey Adair Foote with these rescue ponies. These ponies are very, very sweet, and they have a pretty big story to tell, and they're in need of some help. So listen very carefully. If you can't adopt one, maybe you can go on Facebook to the GoFundMe page and help them. You know, they were feral for a long time, and they have some medical issues that need to be addressed. But for the most part, they can be healthy, happy ponies and be great companion animals for other animals you have on your farm. So Bailey, I'm going to let you start and tell your story.
I was contacted about a month ago about some ponies that I had kept an eye on for a few years. I was very intrigued on their story, what they were, how many there were. So I was able to get a few friends together. It took a whole team of us to get out there and just figure out what was going on. So the ponies had actually been getting out. We had 5 out total when we first got there. There were 2 in the road that were running all around in the road, and 3 that were crossing the active railroad tracks that were right there. So it was a pretty big case that we needed to go ahead and get something done before either the ponies were hurt or somebody got hurt in the process of just driving home from work or to work. I was made aware of this situation and was very intrigued on what the ponies were and how many there were. And so a few friends and I got together and were able to go out there and put our eyes on all of them. Unfortunately, the owner had just fallen on harder times and just was not able to keep up with them the way that they needed. They were so gracious to turn them over to me. They wanted the best outcome for them, and so I've been glad to be able to give them a chance. Right here, I have King Henry. King Henry was the very first one that Haley and I were able to catch ourselves. We were able to catch him because he actually has very limited vision. We're working on figuring out exactly how limited it is, but he was completely feral when he came to us, and you can see now that he just wants attention and love. He's still a little timid, but he's come a long ways. He's able to stand here quietly. He's able to lead and walk around, and he's soaking up all the love that we've been able to give him, and he's gonna make a great companion for somebody one day. King Henry is needing quite a bit of vet work. Of course, he is a stud, so he will need to be gelded. He also will need his Coggins test done, his shots, farrier work, being dewormed, and even his teeth floated. With him having limited vision, he will need a proper setup when he is adopted, whether that be solid fencing, round pin panels, or just taking the time to be able to show him the perimeter because of the limited sight. We estimate King Henry's age between 10 to 15. We're hoping once we have him sedated and at the vet for all of his work that we'll be able to get a better guesstimate on his age.
As you can see, he's an amazingly sweet boy that gentles and warms up to people really fast. And if you're looking for something to love and brush and enjoy, or you have a horse that needs a companion, you know, King Henry might just be the man for you. Because once all his needs are met, you know, he's not going to need a whole lot of stuff. He's just going to be there every day to greet you at the gate and happy to have you pet him and love him. I mean, we just met 10 minutes ago, and he's already letting me pet him. So, you know, think about this really hard. If you're the person that can adopt King Henry, you know, please contact Bailey. And if you want to help, but you're not set up for this kind of situation or it intimidates you, you know, there's a GoFundMe page to get these babies the right amount of medical care because they deserve it.
So here I have Patches. Patches is a 22-year-old stud that was the original stud in this herd. As you can tell, he has been utilized in his past. We are able to pet him and actually pick his feet up. He is super sweet and has found a forever home with me just because of his age and his temperament. Patch will need to be gelded, of course, and same as King Henry, he'll have to have his eyes examined. He will also need his Coggins shots, his feet done, and his teeth floated. So these are 2 additional feral studs, Tony and Donut. As you can see, Tony is coming a very long ways where we can touch and pet on him. Donut is still warming up to us. Both of these ponies will need to be gelded. They both need one eye to be removed. They will need their shots, coggins, teeth floated. Let's see. Their teeth floated and to be dewormed. They will come around with a little work and love. By the time that they'll be ready to be adopted, we hope to have them leading, loading, and able to be completely handled. All right, so I'm Bailey Foote. I grew up in Rocky Mount and graduated from Southern Nash High School. I currently live in Stokes and manage a boarding facility in Greenville. I also run a lesson program, and I absolutely enjoy all of my students and customers that ride with me. I have been active in rescuing for the past 6 years, where I've helped multiple animal controls and done a lot of my own personal work. I have actually rescued 11 different horses and 1 mule in these past 6 years. I'm very grateful to be able to do this right out of my own pocket and be able to help these animals and find them the best homes possible.
So Bailey, not only do you have a lot of experience as a horsewoman yourself, but you've been given the opportunity a couple of times to represent the horse community in big ways. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I was the 2016 Miss Southern Horse Festival for the North Carolina Horse Council, and I absolutely loved having my title because I was able to step out and bring more awareness to the North Carolina Horse Council and also to the equine industry in North Carolina. It's such an important part to me because I don't know where I would be if I didn't have the horses in my life and to keep me on a straight track and keep me focused on my goals and big dreams. And I'm thankful to be able to live my dreams out at the young age that I am and still continue to teach and give those opportunities and chances to youth, even adults that have never been around horses. I'm able to do that for them. And so it's very important to me, and I love being able to go out and spread awareness. And my rescue work is part of that, and I love being able to show that even though they may have come to me in not great conditions, that they can still be given a chance, and we can still give them a good opportunity for a good life.
So Bailey, you've been involved with the Miss Rodeo North Carolina Association too, and that's a big honor. So tell us a little bit about your work with them.
I absolutely adore the Miss Rodeo North Carolina organization. They are some of my most favorite people in the industry. I was actually the runner-up the year that I competed. I won the Miss Congeniality title and Best Speech, and that was very awesome for me. I also have judged for them and helped some of my students actually compete and look forward to actually going this year with a handful of kids to get in there and compete. I love it.
Well, one thing that, as viewers, I want you to know, I've known Bailey a really long time, and she's been a very staunch person in our horse industry for being there for the horse and doing what's right for the horse first. And she's done all of this stuff out of her heart. I mean, she had a 3-legged goat. Y'all probably remember some of that on Facebook. This girl's heart to love is enormous. And she's not asking for any of this help with donations for anything that would benefit her. It's really just to give these guys a chance to live out the rest of their life and not be in pain and not to live in fear. So Facebook, how do they find your GoFundMe?
So I'm on Facebook, Bailey Adair Foote, Foote. I have a GoFundMe. I have my Venmo, PayPal links also up there. If you do send on Venmo or PayPal, please write on there that it is a donation for the ponies. I can also, checks can also be sent. Just shoot me a message and I'll give you the address and who to write it to.
And if I want to adopt one, how do I contact you?
If you want to give me a call at 252-382-2222, we can help see if one of these ponies would be a good fit for you to have a nice companion.
All right. So there you have it. So, folks, look deep in your heart and find a way to help these guys out because they're too sweet to just let them go in pain. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a strange place and not be able to see good. I'm sure that's coming eventually in my life, but as it will in all of ours. But, $50, $20, whatever you can do, it'll make a big difference to these guys, that's for sure. So thanks for watching as always. Hi, this is Rose with Carolina Hoofbeats TV, and we are here today with Donna Campbell Smith, longtime friend and fabulous author, and she is most noted for the books that she's written about horses and her love of horses. So Donna, tell us a little bit about the books you brought today for us to talk about.
I brought the books to the Pale as the Moon and the Independent Spirit is written for juvenile readers, middle grade, fourth grade ideally,
Right.
since they teach North Carolina history in the fourth grade, and these are historical fiction. And then the third one that I brought, Bankers, Mustangs, and Marsh Tackies, that's a collection of stories and legends about the wild horses on our Outer Banks,
Right.
and as well as some history and facts included. It's appropriate for all age readers.
Okay.
Kids and their mamas and daddies and everybody.
Well, let's start with Pale as the Moon. Tell me your inspiration for that book, and tell our readers a little bit about the story of the book. So that
Okay. I started out thinking I was writing a short story and hoping maybe to market it with children's magazines. So it was inspired by the wild horses, and it started out as a story about a foal that gets separated from the herd during a hurricane. And just at the end of that chapter, this little Native American girl appeared, and that's when it had to be a book.
Right.
So it ties into the Lost Colony story from a Native American perspective, and it features the relationship between this little girl named Gray Squirrel, which was my pretend name because I pretended I was an Indian when I was little.
Right.
I played a lot by myself because I was 5 years younger than my baby sister. And we galloped all around the place. Anyway, so it grew, and I didn't really have a plan, but I did some research on the wild horses, and came across a book called Touring the Upper Coast by Daniel W. Barefoot, and he had a story about some artifacts that were found on the mainland that were both English and Native American, and just all of that woke up my imagination.
Right.
And, so it was originally published by Coastal Carolina Press, which was a nonprofit press specializing in books about the Outer Banks and the coast of North Carolina. And when they went out of business, a second publisher picked it up, and then she went out of business.
Right.
So I did it myself. So it has stayed in print since 1999, and it's still my best-selling book.
That is really awesome. And Pale as the Moon is a great book for your young kids to read if they have interest in Native Americans or the wild horses or both. And what a wonderful imaginative journey that Donna takes us through these chapters. Can you give us a couple of little highlights that are in the story?
I did want to mention that they include a teacher's guide.
Right. Okay.
So it'd be great for homeschoolers.
Yeah.
And it has been used in public school as supplemental reading. Well, I didn't think to pick up something to read. I'll jump over to chapter 2 and give an idea. In my story, the tribe that Gray Squirrel belongs to is from the mainland, but they come to the coast and they fish and they dry the fish and
Okay.
to take food back to get them through the winter. And by late afternoon, this is after the hurricane, the repairs to the camp were completed and the family ate their supper. "Tell me about the horses, grandfather." Gray Squirrel loved the stories Blackfeather told around the evening fire. "They were brought here many years ago, in the days when your father was about your age," Blackfeather began. "Men came in great boats from across the ocean. Their skin was very light, and they dressed in colorful garments that had frightening and powerful weapons. The men brought swine and cattle for food, but they did not eat the horses. Horses were their brothers and carried the men from place to place. This was how the horses shared their strength and speed. These men searched for gold and precious stones. They were greedy and cruel people. When they could not find the riches they wanted, they kidnapped our children and sold them for slaves. Your mother's sister was one of those children. She was never seen again after the white men took her. The tribal councils met, and warriors came from all over the land to drive the bad men back to their ships. They sailed away in such fear but they left their animals behind. The horses still roam the islands to the north. So that gives you a little backstory
Right.
on the history and how the horses on the Outer Banks came to be here.
Now tell us what kind of time in history, what year frame?
This
time frame?
well, in the 1500s.
Okay.
This chapter 1 is 1582, and it goes through until the Lost Colony, which I think that was 1587.
Okay.
I got a timeline in here.
Right.
So she meets a little boy her age from the colonists that come, and they form a friendship, and it goes from there.
And the book is available on Amazon?
It's available on Amazon, and I also want to point out that all three of these books, Independent Spirit, Bankers, Mustangs, and Marsh Tackies, as well as Pale as the Moon, are available at the Corolla Wild Horse Funds Museum and bookstore.
Okay.
And you can also order them online. So if you buy them from them, that helps with funding the work they do to preserve and protect the wild horses.
A portion of your profits gets donated back
well,
to them.
all of my profits goes back to them.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, they sell it just like a bookstore would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In their gift shop.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now tell us a little bit about Independent Spirit.
Independent Spirit is based also on a story that I came across in Daniel Barefoot's book. Thank goodness for him. And it's the tale of Betsy Dowdy and her horse named Black Bess. And she lived on Penny's Hill in that area, which is the upper coast of Corolla and further toward Virginia. And she's famous for having ridden 51 miles, swimming the Currituck Sound, to warn that the British were coming. Lord Dunmore had been, and she had heard this over a conversation between her father and one of his friends, that they had taken over Norfolk and Portsmouth. And the thing that horrified her is they slaughtered all the animals, including the horses, so that the colonists wouldn't have a way to fight back.
Right.
And so he was headed toward Great Bridge to come down into North Carolina. And so there was a General Skinner who was encamped near Elizabeth City. That's not exact. In Pasquotank County, so near Elizabeth City, in Hertford, that area. So she just got up in the middle of the night and got on her pony. And this was December the 6th. I don't know whether it was cold, because you know how December is here.
Right.
Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But so that just captured my imagination. So I wrote and I'm not the first one to have written a story about this, but I also wanted to, as being a mother and raising a grandchild, this adventuresome little girl, this isn't the first crazy thing she had done.
Right.
And so I wrote it like the mother's journal.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can turn to one right quick to give an idea. So I'll read one of those. So it's from the diary of Rebecca Dowdy, my imaginary.
Right.
Yeah. I am tired to my bones. It was well past 10 before all of our guests left. They had had a party. Of course, Jonathan, Francis, and Johnny stayed the night. It was a good party for such primitive conditions. I am thankful we had a nice weather with an ocean breeze. An ocean breeze blows the mosquitoes away, which is always a blessing. It is disturbing to watch Betsy growing up here. She's as wild as those ponies she loves. Grandpa Dowdy encouraged her behavior from the time she could walk. He filled her head with stories about pirates and whaling and fighting Indians. As if the stories were not enough, he'd take her out fishing in that old skiff, and of course it was he who taught her to ride. Well, he is gone now. We all miss him. Betsy suffered melancholy for a good while after his passing. She seems much better now. The horse has been a solace to her, and for that I am grateful. Josiah is just like his father, taken up for Betsy all the time. He fails to see the importance of Betsy being schooled and is resisting the whole idea of her going to stay with Francis. He keeps telling me to leave her be. Betsy's a beautiful girl, or I might say young woman. I love how her auburn hair glistens in the sun and her emerald green eyes dance with fire. As much as I often worry about her safety, I can't help loving her spirit. That girl does not know what fear means, and she has a genuine gift with animals. She fell in love with that horse the first day she laid eyes on it. Once she started riding, I never knew where to find her. She and her banker pony roam all up and down these islands. Some days she comes home soaking wet. It was so hot, Mother. Bess and I thought we'd go for a swim, is the answer she gives to my inquiries. Tomorrow, Frances, Betsy, and I are going to knit hats and socks to send the militia. Betsy will be more miserable than the wind, but she can sit still long enough to knit some woolen caps. It's just simple knitting, not as complicated as the stockings. I know I will be doing well if I can keep her here past noon. Well, I'm tired. This was a wonderful party, but so much work.
What a captivating story. You know, I am reading this book myself because even though it's sort of tailored for younger children, I always crave good horse stories and good stories, period. And the fact that this little girl made very similar ride to Paul Revere, you know, at about the same time frame, and nobody ever really celebrates that or noted that,
Exactly.
you know, is amazing. So, and this one is a teacher's guide also.
Yes, it does. And I always like when I do school visits to tell the children, Paul Revere only rode 13 miles.
Mm-hmm.
The war the British were coming. She rode 51, and part of that was swimming across Currituck Sound.
Which in December was no small feat.
Right.
I mean,
even if
any
it was
day.
a warm day, it's going to be cold if you're swimming.
Absolutely.
If you're swimming that long.
And her relationship with that horse was amazing, that she trusts that horse to take her across Currituck Sound, because I'm sure the currents and things must be very strong, and Lord knows what kind of fish that, you know, would be in there, sharks or whatever.
Of course, they had swam before, obviously.
Yeah.
But and I kind of questioned, was that possible? So in doing my research, there is like a place between Corolla, I guess that's Currituck Island,
Mm-hmm.
and Knott's Island, which would be feasible.
Right.
And the Currituck Sound's not very deep.
Right.
But yeah, there is a channel that they had to negotiate, but
Right.
so it's feasible. It's very feasible. And also in my research, and these resources are listed in the book, she really did exist. She's
Mm-hmm.
in the census records. I went to the in Raleigh. Archives.
Right.
The archives.
Right.
and looked it up and found an article, and the story was handed down by General Skinner's daughters to their offspring, and was written, I think, in the 1930s. There was a story, an interview with I guess it would have to be the great-granddaughters of General Skinner, and published in the Elizabeth City paper.
Right.
So you can find that online.
Well, that is super cool.
Yeah.
Now tell us about the third book. I'm not familiar with this one.
Okay. Well, this is a collection of short stories. There are some stories that have been written and recorded before that go way back. I start out in the first chapter just in the history where they came from, and a shortened version of the story of Betsy and Bess. But there were we've heard about how Nag's Head got its name,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where the land pirates were, what would you call them? Opportunists.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If a ship wrecked and all the goods washed up on shore, they would collect them and take them to the mainland and sell them.
Right.
No questions were asked. So from there, they caused the ships to wreck by leading the ponies up and down the dunes with lantern on their necks, so it looked like, a signal light. I don't know that they didn't have a lighthouse yet, I don't think. So anyway, that's the legend.
Mm-hmm.
Nag's Head, the nags, the horses that they
Yeah. And, having grown up in North Carolina and New Bern, I mean, I've heard these stories all my life, and I am so excited that you have stuff, like the Devil's Hoof Print and different things in there. What a wonderful collection. And these folklore stories that have been handed down for generations and generations should never die. So this is a wonderful book to share with your kids.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was fun. It was fun to find. And some of them are original stories that I just made up, too.
Mm-hmm.
They have been published in some magazines and stuff.
Right.
So Yeah, this is a fun one.
And this one covers bankers, mustangs, and marsh
Well,
tackies.
these are the different names for the horses depending on the region. We all called them banker ponies,
Right.
the ones up around the northern beach.
Right.
And then marsh tackies in the southern,
Right, South
southern
Carolina
area.
areas.
And like Cedar Island in South Carolina. And in Florida, they're called crackers.
Yep, absolutely.
And the Mustangs, the Corolla Wild Horse Fund had genetic testing done that proves that these horses are direct descendants of the Spanish Mustangs that were
Sure.
brought over by explorers.
So did Shackelford Banks.
So they are registered now as, now I'm not going to be able to remember the whole thing, colonial something Mustang.
Colonial Spanish Mustangs.
Colonial Spanish Mustangs, exactly.
They are
And,
also our North Carolina state horse.
They are, yep. And I had an interview with the little girl who nominated them and published that on, I think it's on one of my blogs. Don't remember her name right off. So now there's a fourth children's historical fiction that is a sequel to Palos the Moon, and I have a copy left, or it's somewhere I can't find.
Right.
Called Bear Song, which is a sequel to Palos the Moon, which picks the story up from the colonists leaving Fort Raleigh and going to the mainland. And it doesn't feature the horse fiend. It does have a chapter where Gray Squirrel and William go back to the Outer Banks and
Right.
visit her horse, which she just didn't feel like it would be right to bring him away from his herd and alone. So he was left behind.
That's a really cool thing too, because from all the research I've ever done, horses never forget you. Whether you're good or
Yeah.
bad to them,
Yeah.
they never forget
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I've heard those stories too, yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. And you guys out there watching, if you're looking for a way to broaden your children's knowledge and learning, if you're a homeschool parent or just a parent that loves horses and always wish they had one, these books are for you, trust me. And if you want real solid knowledge, the nonfiction books about mules and donkeys and miniature horses are amazing. So I hope you've enjoyed watching today. And thanks, as always, for watching us. And thank you, Miss Campbell Smith. I appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.